All right, everyone, there are actually two main stories today, but this one is bumping the prior for opportunistic reasons, and that's the Hanoi Summit actually ending early. They were supposed to have, I guess, a lunch earlier, and nobody showed up because apparently what happened is Kim Jong-un made comments to the effect that they wanted the United States to drop all sanctions on them like lock, stock, and barrel, which is obviously not actually going to happen. No sane person would make a proposal like this. And some people, it's reprehensible because all the left-wingers right now are like, ah ha ha, Trump has failed. And they're like, they don't really care about the Korean people or the peace process. They just want to score political points. And it's really just, moronic. But I'm actually happy, and I'll tell you why. It sounds really strange, but I've analyzed their prior summits and statements. This is a tactic. This is not the end-all be-all of U.S.-Korean relations. Oh, we go back to the war footing. They're going to start testing missiles again. That's not what you see here, I believe. What you see here is more like what you saw right before the last Pompeo visit, or the comments about Mike Pence that were made, or Trump talking about having a bigger red button, and all of these things. It is just a negotiating step. This is North Korea's big ask. Again, art of the deal. They're adapting the same basic strategy. It's time-tested. What Trump did before the first summit is well, they need to denuclearize, declare your stockpile, allow everyone in, no more artillery on the border, and then we'll lift a few sanctions. It was a big ask, and the United States was never actually going to get, number one, any of those things, especially that quickly, and number two, can't even take the fore on the process. What happened is North Korea said, okay, it's brass tacks time. We need to actually have real negotiations. We're not going to be able to treat Trump the way we did Obama or Bush or Clinton or any of these other people that didn't want to tackle the issue. He seems like he genuinely wants to. Maybe it's about time anyway because, we've got the H-bomb, and so that changes the leverage involved with the strategy as well. What happened is that they went in, therefore, and North Korea then pulled back at the last second, days before they were going to have their initial summit, and said their Pence stuff, and Trump's like, well, I'm not going to go over there if you're going to insult my VP. I'd like to meet with you, but, you need to be better. Oh, no, we want the summit to go forward. And then you have negotiations. Now, what happened? Again, despite the fact that very few of the main requests of either side were actually granted, with the exception of the exhuming and repatriation of some human remains, there wasn't a whole lot of official stuff going on. In order to have peace, and a sane Korean peninsula, three things have to happen. The first is well underway. First is the ushering in of an area of détente-style good feelings, like, hey, we don't really want to come to blows, we respect you, blah, blah, blah. There needs to be mutual respect and a familial sense, especially between heads of state. When you're talking about what, in effect, is a very limited oligarchy, which is kind of a dictatorship, but Kim's military generals and upper-level advisors have power there too. It's not singularly a tyranny in the dictatorial sense, it's more of an oligarchy. When you're dealing with that kind of group, your head of state needs to take the fore. It can't be a legislative thing. Why do you think he goes around Congress? He's not asking Congress permission or advice on anything with relation to Korea. He knows the legislature doesn't even want peace on the peninsula. First you have the air of good feelings, then you have a peace treaty, and then you can talk about everything else. So when Trump said at the meeting yesterday, he's like, hey, the U.S. is dropping denuclearization as an initial demand. Down the road, that's great, but first we'd like to have just peace and normalized relations. That's the way to do it, and I was suggesting that for years. That's what I've said since the get-go, that Trump should do it. He finally did it. Excellent. That's the next step in their negotiating. I am not surprised that Kim Jong-un came out and made an impossible claim that they wanted all sanctions removed. It would be illegal. There's no way to remove them. And Kim Jong-un knows this. Unless you believe the hype that he's one-dimensional and that North Korea really is completely out on the fucking moon when it comes to common sense, that's exactly what you need to do. Kim Jong-un, that's his big ask. He knows he's not going to get them all removed. What'll happen now is there'll be some period of time, Trump and Kim will say, well, we regret that the summit didn't work as planned. We need to do more. We'd like to talk again sometime. They'll talk, they'll chat, they'll put ideas forward, they'll bounce ideas off the fucking wall and off their advisors. They'll come together for another summit down the road, and then you will see another stage of good relations, probably a close precursor to an actual final peace treaty. And if Trump gets a second term, I have no doubt at this point, with the amount of progress being made on the ground there, and I'll talk about that in a second because that's important too, between the two Koreas not even involving the U.S. or China, which are sort of the backers respectively. I believe there will be a peace treaty by the end of his second term if he's reelected. I don't think there'll be a peace treaty if someone else, so if the Democrats win. No, they'll go back right back to the Obama strategy, which is hardline, big words and no action, essentially, leading either to inevitable war or leading to a situation where North Korea breaks containment, takes over the ROK because no one else dares to get involved. Something like that, which was their long-term goal anyway. That's why their sub-based missile systems are so overdeveloped compared to a lot of their weaponry. There's a fucking reason for this. There's a reason they got more, I think, more submarines than any other nation in the world. Actually, I believe, if I remember correctly. Enormous numbers of them. There's a reason for that. It's a deterrent, a very practical one. Load an H-bomb onto the sub, idle it offshore, say, hey, go ahead and strike us, get involved and see what happens. Bye-bye San Francisco, bye-bye LA, bye-bye Vancouver, bye-bye Seattle, bye-bye everyone. Fuck you all, bye-bye Beijing, bye-bye Tokyo. Yeah, a billion people die because of nuclear strikes. Wonderful time. But if you look on the ground, pragmatically, here's how you gauge the peace process. Don't think about Trump and Kim and what they say and stuff. That's largely a symbolic floor show. It matters because it sets the stage for real development, but the real developments are what truly matter. The ROK and North Korea have preliminarily reconnected their rail and roads. That's number one. They've removed a large number of landmines from the DMZ. They have repatriated remains. Their soldiers cross over onto both sides of the border, swapping stories and cigarettes, without any apparent risk of any sort of bad feelings or hostilities. They've destroyed border posts. They've moved back military systems. They've stopped propaganda broadcasts. This is the least warlike that the peninsula has been since before the Korean War began in the first place. So I am very, very optimistic when I see it. Like, it looks like North and South Korea are already hammering things out on their own. As far as the legal side, it takes a lot longer. Look, on the ground, it's easy. The ROK and DPRK say, enough of this bullshit. This is basically a feud. We barely even remember why we were fighting in the first place. It's not the 50s or 60s anymore. Fuck it. They start to make peace in the most physical sense. Now it's sort of the US and China almost hammering things out. It's almost more Trump talking to Jinping at certain times than to Kim Jong-un, because they've got the backing of China tacitly still to some extent. We back the ROK. And so it's sort of like these are the people that are affected, and these are the powers that are actually converging to discuss the issue, to the point where Russia's almost the neutral intermediary, which should, by the way, concern people a little bit more. I have no doubt that you will see peace in the peninsula, unless Trump is supplanted by a Democrat, in which case it goes right back day one to a war footing. By the way, you can expect if it looks like the Democrats are going to win, Kim Jong-un will pull back on some of that progress. Again, no doubt in my mind whatsoever, because they'll say, look, we're going to get another big talking but ultimately ineffectual Democrat. We don't need to worry about this. We'll hammer things out with the Republic of Korea so that the risk of war is considerably lower. But why would we want to make a deal with the U.S.? They're going to do to us what Obama was doing and make a bunch of red lines and legalistic, bureaucratic, legislative bullshit that we'll never be able to agree to. And North Korea, again, Kim Jong-un knew when he made the statements that he made that it would fundamentally cause the summit to end. Trump had no choice, number one, and number two, made the right decision. Kim Jong-un now will be conciliatory. Trump will be conciliatory. They will schedule a new summit or talk on the phone, and then they will hammer out a more tacit agreement, a roadmap towards peace. It's exactly what he needed to do. He did an excellent job. That's about all. Peace out.